To call this Finance Committee meeting to order. The first item we have is assignment for request for council action. We have a few for the Finance Committee. We have 24-263 addendum to Quad Cycle RCA approved draft ordinance, 2535 budget amendment, 2536 amend and restate ordinance 3921 Medina TV, 2537 Lake Medina improvements, 2538 fund advance sanitation fund, 2539 budget amendments, 2540 accept storm sewer easement on Hillview Way, 2541 expenditure HSH construction for the Parks Department, 2542 2024 carry forward, 2543 general liability insurance renewal, 2544 P&O for Huntington Bank. All right, the first item we have is 24-263 addendum to RCA quad cycle draft ordinance. Mr. Rose, I think this came from your committee?
Yes, it did. Thank you very much, Mr. President. We reviewed this back in early January at the Special Legislation Committee meeting. It passed unanimously with Reggie and Jessica, so you're going to have to take my word for it.
Oh, okay.
Okay. We then went back to the police department and Mr. Huber. They added some information. I added some information to it with regard to Section 5 and which streets they should stay away from during the hours of 4 to 6 so we don't tie up any traffic any further. And subsequently, I did receive a request from a resident that we expand Elmwood out here all the way to Homestead, because during rush hour traffic, the cars tend to get off of Court Street and over to Huntington and Elmwood. So we would extend Elmwood all the way down to Smith. That would be, I think some of the residents would appreciate that.
And when you say the 4 to 6 p.m. in the city and Medina Falling Streets, is that 7 days a week or during work days?
Chief?
I think we agreed that it was going to be 7 days a week, as
Okay.
the traffic during the weekend sometimes is worse than it is during the week.
Okay, thank you, Chief.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. I mean, in the weekend, it all depends. I mean, it could be worse all day Saturday
True.
or whatever times. But I get it. I mean, usually, I would imagine a lot of the activities probably wouldn't occur until after 6 anyways.
True.
Okay.
And this time here really shouldn't impact them. They can do a neighborhood thing during that time instead of coming across the busier streets.
Well, I think we have to try this out. I think it's good to restrict it and try to eliminate problems before they occur, but we're not going to know until it's in operation to see what really works.
Exactly.
We have to trial by error a little bit. But we've learned some things from Wadsworth, so I guess we're trying to head it off before it starts.
Mm-hmm. And one other thing that I was considering is maybe and Mr. Huber and Chief, if you would chime in on this, add a sentence or something saying, and other times as deemed necessary by the police, the administration.
I don't know if we could do that. I think in an ordinance, you have to be more specific. Well, you have to be more specific, too, about the times. You just can't say somebody, whenever they decide the time is, that's the time. I think that's a little,
Yeah, I would agree. It's a little
Okay.
bit vague, but
All right.
I defer to law director.
not to be a lawyer on you, but I think you
But you're a lawyer on me, okay? I go computer on you.
do. Mayor?
So if I'm understanding Councilman Rose, then we want to change 5F to Elmwood Avenue between
Homestead,
Homestead Street and Smith Road,
correct,
between those restricted hours.
correct.
Mr. Huber, you okay with doing that on the floor?
That's pretty simple change.
Yeah,
And then I also agree with John, putting in a provision that makes that flexible, makes the ordinance vague. I think the best thing would be to try this, see what problems come up. If we need to change it, we change it.
okay, all right, thank you.
And for the council's benefit, I have shared this, obviously not that today's amendment, but I've shared it with both Mr. and Mrs. Gershbacher as well as the person with the bike program. So they're well aware and knew that it was coming to finance tonight and likely council on the 24th.
Yeah, I think with that change, it's a good starting point, and, we can see how it works. If we need to make modifications, we can make modifications.
Yep,
Okay.
sounds good.
All right.
Any other
Thank you.
questions on that?
Move to approve as modified.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next one we have is 2535, a budget amendments, 2025-04 for the Parks Department. Jansen?
Thank you, Mr. President. This is to appropriate a check that we received due to an accident on January 14th.
Okay, any questions?
Move to approve.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item we have is 2536, it's amend and restate ordinance 3921, Medina TV. Jared, this is you.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is an amended restate for our agreement with Medina TV Services to the Medina County Board of County Commissioners to tape the meetings. It is an update from our 2021 salaries and benefits that are combined to create this wage, an increase from $52 an hour to $67 an hour. The emergency clause is requested so that we can make these changes to the agreement within the allotted negotiating window. This will go from here, from council, for then the county commissioners to approve to get done before the end of the month.
Correct, and I think the reason we wanted to amend and restate it, and Jared and I spoke about this, because we're going to do an amendment, but if you do an amendment, then you have to keep everything together, and if you lose one, nobody knows what happened, so we just amend and restate it, so it's the same agreement, just in a new form, with the modifications made. Mayor?
I'd just like to also add that the law director has reviewed and approved the contract as submitted.
So that, and then once we pass it for finance, what's the timing of the county commissioners? Are they going to start reviewing it?
They got a draft of this proposal already to look at, and then once we get it approved and signed through council, it'll be on their agenda to be passed as a resolution, probably within the next 2 meetings.
Okay.
Yeah, he's requested an emergency clause.
Okay, emergency clause has been requested. Anybody have any questions about that? Because this is retroactive, I think, to January 1st. Yes. Are we okay with that?
Great. I'll make a motion to amend and restate ordinance 3921 with the change in the hourly rate with the emergency clause.
And second includes the emergency clause?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Jared. 2537, Lake Medina improvements. Mayor?
So this was presented to Public Properties last October 29th. That's not true. This was presented to the Public Properties Committee, and according to the lease that we entered into on October 29th, 2002, the law director said they can make these improvements, but we're simply asking the council through a resolution to acknowledge the improvements that they're proposing, which are attached to this.
Yeah, there's 2 of them. There's a construction of a stone block stairway because of the worn path that people already are creating, so they're going to put stairs in, which makes sense.
Yep.
And a mural on the pump house.
Also 2 more. There's a kayak launch and a fishing pier, too,
Or is there?
from what he originally brought for us and what we passed through.
And I just got an email today where Mr. Epic is asking about adding some security cameras.
Well, I guess the question is, as long as it's permitted under the lease that we've already entered into, I mean, the question is, we probably have approval rights to confirm that what they're doing is okay, as long as, we see those things and they're put in places where they're not going to cause a hazard. I don't know why we would object to it.
Right.
Agreed. So I guess I don't know, how do we approve this if we don't have all the items? I guess subject to modification, we'll approve what they have so far, subject to modification, because you're going to get additional things, it sounds like. Right?
Yes, I'll reach out to him. He had a conflict with another meeting, and had planned to make it, but then couldn't at the last minute. So he is going to be here for council, but I'll ask him if he can redraft the January 29th letter and include everything that they're talking about now. Even if it's years down the road, if we approve it now, then it's approved. Otherwise, each time you do something, you probably have to come back just to have council acknowledge it. So we'll try to get it cleared up, and then I'll get it to Kathy to get to you.
And it sounds like all these improvements that they're requesting to make are not going to violate any existing agreements or rulings on lawsuits that we had, because I think the lawsuit only ruling was the level of the lake at 928 or 926. I can't remember what that was. And I don't think any of this stuff interferes with the resolution of that lawsuit.
Right, correct.
I was going to say too, Kathy, if you want, I know Jared had sent us the PowerPoint, because if people want to see pictures of, because they had brought that at Public Properties then as well. So I don't know if all the council saw those.
The PowerPoint?
The PowerPoint that shows the mural, a sample of the mural on the pump house, it showed the dock, it showed the kayak launch, and it showed the pavilion, I believe.
Right.
So the only question we have beyond that is the location of the cameras.
Yes.
And that's all we have to see. So
There was some additional stones on the edge too, to make it a little bit easier.
yeah, if we can see those before we approve it at council, I think it would be fine.
And did, Jim, I can't remember even though I was there, is that the same meeting that we talked about the addition and the new entrance from Foot Road from the Shotwell family?
That was a project that was going to be all on the property that
Okay.
the Shotwells donated, but he did talk about that.
Okay.
It all is going to tie in as well.
Okay, thank you.
Because they had the donation coming from the Shotwells, plus they had acquired some additional property to the north, which is, I think,
Correct.
where the pavilion's going to be.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Move to approve, subject to the final specs of what all this includes before the council meeting then from Nate.
Second.
Any further comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Oh, I'm sorry, that was with the emergency clause as well.
Okay. My second's with the emergency clause.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. 2538, a fund advance from the sanitation department. Keith, no, Mayor, you're playing all these positions today?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So this is from Keith on this. An advance is needed to cover the operating costs of the sanitation fund. Residential rates were increased July 1st, 2024, from $16 to $18 per dwelling unit, and will increase by another $2 to $20 July 1st, 2025. Commercial rates were also increased January 1st, 2025. So this advance will provide the funds necessary to stabilize the fund until these increases are all being gathered.
All right, any questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 2539, budget amendments, we have 2025-02 from the police department. Chief, are you?
I have this for Keith.
Okay.
So this is a appropriation adjustment for a donation from the Park Foundation for the police department.
$50,000, correct? That's the one I'm looking at.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any questions?
Chief, that's the second one, correct?
Yes, sir. That's the second one. It just showed up in the mail a couple weeks ago, unsolicited.
Question? What is the Park Foundation?
It's Mr. Ray Park. He is a local businessman, lives in Hinckley, but has quite a few businesses in the western Pennsylvania area. And he's been very gracious with his money to the fire department, the police department, and the local police department surrounding our area as well.
Okay, thank you.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And 2025-03, it's a lot of miscellaneous items. Mayor?
Yeah, these are a number of appropriation adjustments, including a donation from the Ken Cleveland Foundation for the new playground to be located at Ken Cleveland Park, to cover the advance in the general fund that we just talked about for the sanitation fund, and the rest are to cover various projects, including the courthouse renovations, 30 Circle Drive, CHIP project, and the Progress Drive water tower.
Questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 2540, an accepting of a storm sewer easement on Hillview Way. Patrick?
Thank you. We were out doing an inspection, a property owner was working on their apron, and come to find out that the city storm sewer, existing storm sewer, crosses this private property outside the right-of-way for a little bit. So we approached the property owner, he was willing to give us an easement for $1, so this is what that's for.
Is that coming out of your carry forward?
I've changed in my desk, I can.
Anybody have any questions?
Move to approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. 2541, expenditure for HSH Construction for the Parks Department. Jansen.
Thank you, Mr. President. We are in the process of acquiring a property at 334 Foundry Street through a donation from the Tom and Jill Lincoln Foundation. This request is to get a purchase order in place for when we receive those funds and close on the property that we can demolish the house. So this will cover the demolition and the site restoration.
Questions?
Move to approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. 25042, the 2024 carry forward. We have a list of everybody received of the carry forward numbers. I was going through that, looking at it, and I was talking to Mike Kovac called and had a question, so I went over there to talk to him, and I was looking at the budgets and looking at the numbers, and something wasn't adding up, so I don't know Keith's out today and Lori's out today, so we have nobody to ask the question to. But I think we just want to make sure the numbers are correct and match. So I'm not sure if we can approve them. I don't think overall the numbers are what they are, and it seems like pretty good. I mean, we have $15 million over all the years we've been doing this and carry forward that the departments have saved to try to use in other projects. But we just want to make sure that the budgetary numbers and the way they calculate it is correct. So I think at least one, I found a discrepancy and I don't know how to answer it. So we have to have Keith, I know he's out ill today, so we can't do that. Mayor?
Yeah, what my plan is I'm looking at the carry forward request, so it doesn't have the budget numbers that John is referencing, but the budget numbers that were used to then identify the available carry forward, the budget numbers didn't match the budget numbers that Council President Coyne had in his hand. So with that being said, I'm going to ask Lori, in lieu of Keith, if he's not back tomorrow, to go through and make sure that spreadsheet is actually the correct numbers, so that what we're basing it off of then is the correct carry forward, so that we're not passing something that we find out later the numbers were incorrect. I don't see this as a big rush with any of the department heads, because early in the year, the monies are already budgeted and in place. It will be, many of these will be necessary as the year goes on, but I think we can postpone this for 2 weeks and get this resolved.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that what we're passing is correct. Because the one I found, it was I think, an $18,000 difference, and I can't explain why. Yeah. Okay, so we'll hear back from Lori, and the mayor will speak with Lori on that. So 2543, general liability insurance renewal. Mayor?
Yes, sir. So this is the general liability. It increased roughly 6.5%. This is with Weichert, is our broker for this. And it's multiple different companies that you see there: Selective, Allianz Global, Cincinnati insurance companies. But we run them all through Weichert. And so ours was about a 6.5% increase. So my question to them is, what averages are you seeing for cities as they renew? And she said the averages were in the 10 to 15% range. So that tells us that that this is a pretty good quote for us. I had Mr. Huber review it for the numbers and our exposure, to make sure we're properly covered. He was satisfied with that. She also spoke very highly of the city's review of incidents, accidents, and doing our best to kind of contain and any liability or potential liability into the future. For example, getting notice of a culvert that needs replaced or a hole in the road, and either putting a barrel on it or fixing it immediately, because once we're put on notice, we have a very limited period of time before if somebody else either gets injured or causes damage, we would be responsible for that. So I I give a lot of credit to the department heads for getting on things and keeping our liability limits and exposure as careful as we can.
Questions?
No.
Move to approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. And 2544 PO for Huntington Bank. Mayor?
That's for me.
Who is it? Oh,
Okay.
Chief?
Yeah, yes, sir.
I just-
We're just
so used to saying
increasing.
mayor.
That's good, because I got nothing.
The look of panic. No, we're just increasing this PO and adding a line. We're increasing it by $500 just to cover our web check. We recently acquired the technology to where we can do digital fingerprinting, where when we book somebody, it automatically sends them the fingerprints to the state as well as the FBI for the NCIC system. But we can also do web checks. At this time, we're just going to do it internally, though, and we'll look at how it progresses down the road. But we needed to add that line in that $500 increase just to cover those charges.
Questions?
Move to approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Is there anything else to come before finance before we have to recess into executive session? All right, Jim?
Okay, I'll make a motion at 6:22 PM to go into executive session for two purposes. One is to consider the purchase of property for public purposes because premature disclosure of the information would give an unfair competitive bargaining advantage to a person whose personal or private interest is adverse to the public interest, and conferences with the law director of the city concerning disputes involving the city that are subject to pending or imminent court action to include the mayor and the law director in the executive session.
Second.
Yeah, clerk, please call the roll.
DeSalvo.
Yes.
Rose.
Yes.
Shields.
Yes.
Coin.
Yes.
Simpson.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
We'll be recessing into executive session to discuss the items Mr. Shields mentioned. We will exit the executive session, reconvene into the finance committee, adjourn, taking no action of the items discussed into executive session. So we are in recess.